Hi, guys. Hello, hello, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be diving into how to expand your yoga studio on your own terms with Zach Mills from OnBrand. Thanks so much for being here today, Zach.
I appreciate you having me, Laura. Super stoked. Can't thank everybody enough for hopping on. Excited to dive in.
Yeah, thank you all for showing up here today. And for those of you watching on the recording, we have a really incredible presentation for you today. And I think one of the reasons I was so excited about this is we constantly hear frustration and friction when it comes to how to present yourself online, where to spend money on ads, and how to make the most of that. And from what I've seen with Zach and working with our clients here at Walla, it seems like you've really nailed this industry. And I'd love for you to tell our friends here a little bit about you. Actually, if you want to share your screen, you can dive into that slide on your presentation.
Perfect. Might as well. Let's do it.
Awesome.
All right. You guys seeing me?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, yeah, to Laura's point, so excited to be here. Quick background check on myself. Been in the industry close to 10 years now. Started on the vendor side, been on the operating side for 5+ years now. Former marketing director at Exponential Fitness, headed up marketing for both Yoga 6 and AKT, which is, why we're diving into the bread and butter today. I founded ONBRND, which is a digital marketing agency, specifically for boutique studio partners. And to this day, our current footprint is we're working with over 60 different studio partners. We've managed over $1 million in ad spend. We're averaging anywhere between 10 to 12% conversion rates. And we've generated close to 50,000 leads across the board, not to mention 1,000 email campaigns deployed. So again, we really kind of come from the industry. We take a look at a holistic view and pretty much like your entire digital funnel to really drive a sustainable growth model for our studio partners. So excited to dive into all the nitty gritty with you guys today.
Yeah. And before we go into the deck completely, I did want to just throw a couple things out there, kind of housekeeping, but also for those of you that aren't using Walla currently, we'll absolutely tailor this presentation to any platform you're using. So this is going to be speaking to everybody across the board in boutique fitness. We're obviously focusing in on yoga studios here, but you can apply a lot of these principles across the board. For those of you that want to say hello, pop in, introduce yourselves, we've got a chat feature up on the right side. Please just pop in. Dana, yay. You can say hello in there, chat with each other. But if you do have questions during the presentation, if you wouldn't mind, there is a little Q&A section. So the Q&A is great for us so we can actually mark things as answered and we can see if a lot of people have the same question. That way I can monitor it and make sure everything's covered. So as we go, please ask questions in Q&A. And if you want to just comment or say hello or, tell Zach how his hair looks, you can do that in chat. All right. Cool. I'll turn it back over to you, and please stay, guys. Close your tabs. Let's do this.
Let's do it, guys. Appreciate y'all. We're going to dive into quite a bit today. The main goal for me is really that every studio partner here or every studio owner here can walk away with 4 or 5 like grasped concepts that you can go and deploy directly in your business, whether it's across intro offers, a specific automation sequence, meta ads best practices, or even a type of reactivation campaign. Again, we got this down to about 25 minutes or so. So again, don't want to take up too much time. We're going to have plenty of time at the end for some QA. So we can kind of rock through things. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to dive on in. And again, feel free to chime in as things progress. All right. So first and foremost, got a couple of quick polls for you guys. Want to learn who it is that is on the webinar today and who it is that we're talking to. So first and foremost, there should be a poll feature you guys can take advantage of is what booking system or CRM are you currently using? Could be Walla, MindBody, Mariana Tech, Moments, on down the list. And I can't see the poll, so Laura, you're gonna have to keep me posted. We got them coming in. Laura, can you hear me?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Are you on mute? Perfect. We got the polls coming in.
Okay, I will go through that again. So polls, we've got Walla's about 55%, MindBody and Mariana Tech about 20% each, and then other is looks like Acuity. People have popped into the chat to let us know.
Cool.
Acuity,
right on.
And yeah, thanks for bearing with my muted moment, everybody.
I'm just talking aimlessly. Perfect. Here we go. All right, cool. Poll number 2. Are you guys currently running ads? That could be Google, could be Meta, could be TikTok, anything. Just want to see who's engaged in some outbound marketing.
All right. So the poll is published now. You guys can see it on the right side, hopefully. And it could be any ads that we've got about 65% yes.
Nice.
So definitely more than half of you guys are running ads, it looks like. Mostly Instagram, mostly Facebook, Instagram.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly what we're diving into today. Let's go. All right, nice. And then finally, what is your biggest bottleneck? We have a few options, that are listed in the poll. So really just kind of want to understand between lead flow, retention, and on down the list.
All right. Yeah, new leads, lead conversion, or member retention are the options.
Nice.
And it seems like lead conversion seems to be the biggest bottleneck so far. Yeah.
Epic.
Still at 75, 78% lead conversion.
Oh, wow. All right, here we go. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys setting the tone there. Again, it's just great for us to have a little bit better of understanding of, who it is that we're talking to. And, that way we can kind of tailor the conversation accordingly. But it's also a good chunk of you guys are on Walla, so you guys will be familiar with, some of the systems that we're going to dive in. For those folks that are on MindBody, Mariana Tech, Acuity, and others, these are all 100% applicable to you guys. There's just a couple more levers, that you're definitely going to have to pull on certain pieces when it comes to integrations. But with that being said, guys, we're going to break into the first section, right? So again, from our perspective on the marketing side, we always like to approach it from a holistic standpoint, right? And it's not just leads. We like to take a look at the entire system. And when it comes to that, the first thing that we look at is your intro offer, right? It's the first thing somebody sees, whether they're, a new potential customer, a referral, whatever it may be, right? And so that's really where we tend to start when it comes to just the digital marketing infrastructure of any yoga studio that we're working with, okay? And so just to give you guys kind of our first little sweet spot or first little snippet when it comes to offers and what we see working for the majority of our yoga studio partners, it really comes down to a 7 to 14 day offer. We say that because of 5 different reasons. First one is it appears more cost-friendly than a 30-day offer, right? You can typically price them anywhere between, let's call it $20 up to 59 or so. It shortens the sales cycle, right, considerably, so you can have more opportunities to convert members over the course of each month. It reduces your CPL and or your cost per lead without exactly reducing quality, because again, it is somewhat of a higher ticket offer. It creates faster urgency, and then again, it's an easier conversion window during that time. 3 top performers that, again, we are looking to implement or currently are implementing with a lot of our studio partners is, first one is 10 days for $10. This is specific to a yoga studio partner that is donation based. And so their price point is much lower than, your standard yoga studio, right? And so we're able to get away with a little bit lower ticket of an offer. Next one is 7 days for anywhere between $29 to $39. And then lastly is 2 weeks for $49 to $59. So again, we really base these intro offers on 3 different pieces. It's a combination of your drop-in price, what your monthly unlimited price is. So if it's $150, we divide that by 30. It essentially comes down to $5 a class, right? So again, we take a look at that piece, and then lastly, it's the competitive landscape. So you'll want to take a look at your 3 or 4 closest competitors within, let's call it a 5-mile radius of your studio. See what it is that they're offering from a price point and a value position, and then that's typically the 3 areas that we look to really dive into. to come to the valuation of the offers for each of our studio partners. So take a look at those. Again, just a few that are top performers for us from both a conversion rate standpoint, as the majority of folks on here are dealing with, and an overall CPL and lead volume standpoint as well.
Yeah, don't worry. He's going to be showing data on Black.
Exactly. So next up, again, is exactly that, right? So Black Swan Yoga is one of our bigger studio partners, particularly on the yoga side, to where they have that 10 days for $10, right? And so typically anything that's low ticket like that, we usually don't touch with a 10-foot pole. But Black Swan is the differentiator here, primarily because they're dropping classes usually anywhere between $10 to $12, right? And then their monthly unlimited is $98. Oftentimes they're running at $88. So again, it's not too big of a jump there. From a booking rate perspective, we are looking at close to 15% of folks who sign up for a lead or submit a lead form are actually taking advantage of that 10 days for $10. And then based on the systems that they have as a result of that, they're converting those into return purchasers, whether it's a pack or a membership, at approximately 30% as well. All right. Next up is Tuladara Yoga. Again, I know we were talking about the 7 to 14 day time span. Tuladara is actually a bit of an outlier. And then they're doing incredibly well with a 30-day offer, priced a little bit more aggressively on the $59 side. So we're looking at a close to 12% booking rate or so with them, and close to 40% in terms of conversion. That's to be expected, right? It's a longer period of time. They're able to take more classes, and thus they are able to convert them at a much higher level. And then next up is Soul Seek Yoga. So these are folks that, again, they're a little bit higher price just based on their proximity in Southern California. They're running 2 weeks for $69, 9% booking rate, so a little bit lower than the other two. But again, industry average is anywhere between 2 to 3% of digital leads, and they're converting close to 30%. All right. So again, really just a quick snapshot in terms of what we see as working from both a CPL and a CVR standpoint to get people through the door. All right. So again, that's just the first section. You want to take a look at your intro offers. It's the first thing that people see. Try different ones, but you really leverage those 3 different data points to really understand what is best for your studio and what is ultimately going to be best for your members. All right. So now that we've discussed the intro offers, the next piece that we want to dig into before any type of outbound marketing is completed is your automation systems, right? So the last thing we want to do is be driving leads, spending money on ads, and the leads are going nowhere or they're not being communicated with, right? A lot of people on this call, I would imagine, are either single or 2 or 3 studio location operators. And with that, you're wearing 19 different hats, right? And oftentimes lead follow-up tends to get pushed to the side. So again, before we start running any ads for any of our studio partners, we make sure that they have the 4 fundamental automations put in place, or the journeys in this case for the Walla users, to ensure that any new contact that enters your system is being communicated with on a consistent basis and on an immediate basis, right? So again, as we dive into these, without automation, really your ads are not going to succeed. Okay? Like industry averages, you can expect around 2 to 3% of your digital leads to convert. The reason we're able to see booking rates anywhere between 8 to 10 to 12 to 15% is primarily based on the systems that we put in place before we press play on the advertising. And it really comes down to these 4 pieces right here. Your new lead flow. So this is anybody who created an account and has not purchased or has not visited. What does that touch point and that sequence look like from a communication standpoint? The next one that we typically dive into is your drop-in or your ClassPass upsell. So folks who come in on a single class or come in on ClassPass, how do we upsell them to your intro offer? What is the communication cadence and the strategy around that? Your trial nurture, all right? Majority of our studio partners are anywhere between 7 to 14 days of that trial. We want to engage with them on a consistent basis to keep them coming back and keep them using their trial, right? And then lastly, this is like, I would say 9 out of 10 studio partners that we work with miss this final one of miss sale. So these are the folks that have just completed their trial offer, right? What is that communication cadence like over the course of 5, 7, 10, 14 days, as they are the warmest possible leads that you guys can have, right? So diving into that, again, takeaways that I want you guys to, at least take. You don't have to write all this down. We'll obviously send the deck afterwards, but what you see on the right here is our go-to kind of tried and true method when it comes to the new lead flow automation. All right. So we've got anywhere between 7 to 8 different touch points over the course of a 10 time span. And it really just helps move the needle from an initial communication, initial booking standpoint. So just to break that down, that you see on the right, day 0 immediate, that is specific to anybody who completes a form, right, or creates an account. We send them an email and a text message immediately, right? Those emails and those text messages have to be hyper personalized, right? Walla does a fantastic job of being able to pull in specific personality-based data in terms of names, numbers, birthdays, events, etc. So the more that you can personalize that experience, the better, right? We do actually recommend and work with our studio partners to try and get a manual outreach on the same day that a lead comes in, if possible. We know it's not always possible just based on the million different hoops and hats that you guys are wearing, but that's always a bonus, right? And then the subsequent messaging after that is alternating between email and SMS. So 1 day later, it's an SMS, 2 days later, email, 3-day SMS, 7-day email, 10-day SMS. So again, good chunk of the studio partners we work with, they'll usually have 1 or 2 initial messages, right? But to cut through the noise in today's world, we all know that we wake up and we've got 100 random emails in our inbox. We're getting text messaged on a consistent basis, right? But how is it that we break through that noise? And it's through that hyper personalization and the consistency factor.
Yeah. Just quickly, Rosa had a question, and
Ooh,
Rosa,
yeah.
clarify this. You said, is there a more current recommendation for a trial time period? Are you referring to what he mentioned at the beginning, like 10 days, 7 days, 10 days, or 2 weeks? Maybe just pop that into the chat. But if I heard you correctly, Zach, you are recommending, and your data shows that anywhere between 7 and 14 days is an ideal trial period?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. All right, Rosa, if there's anything else we missed there, just pop into the chat and let me know.
Awesome. All right, and we'll keep rocking on. So that's the new flow. Again, on number 2 is your drop-in / class pass intro upsell, right? So again, these are folks that come in on that single class, don't necessarily take advantage of your intro offer. But again, they are very, very, very warm leads because again, they know who you are, they've taken a class. How is it that we get them back and upsell them to a 7 or 14-day offer, right? And so the touch points here need to be a little bit less consistent, again, because they've already been inside the studio. But you definitely want to reach out and make it as personal as possible. With these flows in particular, we try to make it more SMS forward, particularly on the drop-in side. ClassPass obviously is a little sticky when it comes to data transfer. But the usual cadence for us is a day 1, day 3, day 7. And so day 1 is that SMS. Manual outreach is an absolute plus. So, hey, just saw you came in for your first visit. What'd you think? Did you know that we have this intro offer XYZ? Would love to get you booked in. Let me know if you've got any questions, but hope to see you back in the studio soon, right? Something very, very similar to that. We tend not to be too salesy or pushy in the majority of our messaging. We found that the more personalized and the more conversational that we make these messages and leave them open for interpretation and for replies, the better response that we get, right? And so again, the benefits of working with a Walla, right, is that you have that 2-way texting SMS capabilities that everything houses in the inbox, right? So you have the ability to not just send them a link and purchase, right? But you can leave them with a cliffhanger of, can we get you signed up? What did you think of class? How do we get back in the studio type of pieces?
I love the, can we get you signed up? I hear time and time again that people just want you to do it for them, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's anything you can take care of for them where you don't have to send them a promo code to another link, like make it as simple as possible. And yeah, like this is an easy way to make that happen with an automation.
100%. All right, and so the next one, so third of the top 4 that we typically dig into, again, is just that trial nurture, right? We've worked so hard, we've spent very valuable ad dollars. Someone submitted a lead, they purchased the trial. Now what, right? Of course, they're going to take advantage of it, right? They might come in 2-3 times, depending on what your offer is. But what is that experience like, right? All data is showing just that personalization, hyper community focused is really what's moving the needle from a conversion rate standpoint. And so you want to have 3 to 4 touch points during anybody's multi-day trial, right? And so again, what we look at and what our go-to is typically after that first class, what does that SMS look like? Just a quick check-in. Don't necessarily need to push them to book their next class or anything like that. Usually it's halfway through the trial. Send both an email and an SMS depending on what they've opted in to do. So that way you're hitting them from both angles. And then 3 days before their expiration, again, this is more specific to the longer term trials in the 14 days. With these, we like to include some type of incentive or some type of membership specific offer to where, hey, if you commit before your trial is up, you get XYZ, you get 10% off your monthly membership, right? Whatever it may be. And then again, the last one is 1 day before expiration. This one is, we do tend to introduce a little bit more scarcity in the sense of, hey, it's been so much fun having you. You've got 1 day left. Don't forget about this off XYZ. We'd love to get you signed up. Let me know if I can help in any way, but it's been awesome having you by the studio, right? So again, those are the 4 different touch points that we tend to include during the overall trial process. Again, within Walla, this is super, super simple to set up on the journey side of things, just based on the automation and the segmentation capabilities. MindBody, Mariana Tech, a little bit more difficult just based on how quickly the systems update. But there are levers that you can pull to at least have some type of engagement during that process.
Zach, we have a quick question from Angela, and it goes back to your maybe one slide back about the drop-in upsell. Yeah. Okay. So just any insight on success for that follow-up to get them to rather than, like try out the intro offer or upgrade to the intro offer. I know you have this SMS here. Is there something that you've seen be successful to get them to bite there, essentially?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is taking their drop-in and then discounting that towards the intro offer in particular, right? We have different studio partners who are a little bit more price averse than others, but particularly for first-time visitors. So say your drop-in is $35, your intro offer is $60. You would essentially discount that 35 from the 60, saying, hey, we'd love to get you upgraded for $25. You just have an extra 6 days left. Let us know if you want to take advantage of that, right? So all in all, you're essentially selling the same thing, but it seems as if you're giving them so much more value, and it leaves a great taste in their mouth. And the response rate is pretty phenomenal from what we've seen.
Okay, great. And you can always create like a separate plan in Walla system that's that discounted version of the new student special, and make it just like a one-time purchase or only available to purchase once, so people don't buy that over and over.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm not sure if Justin from SoulSeek is on or not, but they do a fantastic job of this at their studio for sure.
Thanks.
All right, so we got the trial nurture, and then last but not least, guys, this is Miss Sale. So again, between the new lead and between Miss Sale, I would say these are your 2 most vital in the sense of what it is that you want to be communicating and how often you want to be communicating, right? So this is essentially pulling in anybody who completes a trial offer that does not convert to a membership, a package, or they don't have a future booking scheduled for your studio. So the way we like to break this down is twofold. The first 5 days after someone completes their trial offer, if they don't convert, we like to be very membership focused with that particular offer. We usually go day 1, day 3, day 5, typically flip-flopping between email and SMS just to hit them from different channels. And then for whatever reason, if they don't convert to that membership or they're not incentivized enough by that membership offer, we'll cool things for about 3 or 4 days or so, and then we'll throw them into a separate segmentation where we hit them with a credit pack offer, right? So we remove that barrier, that potential objection of, okay, like, hey, I don't really want to commit to a membership. I don't know if I want to come 4 times a month or 8 times a month or unlimited, etc. So we take that off of the plate and then typically offer something like a 10, 15, or 20% off your first credit pack, right? And we've seen quite a bit of success with that type of combination. There are some studios where we have this role reversed just based on the overall efficacy. But again, the MRR is something that we typically strive for. And so that's why we lead with that membership focused offer. All right. So now we're getting to the meat and potatoes, which I would imagine is a good chunk why most people signed up today, in the sense of just meta strategy and get more leads through the door, get more qualified leads through the door. Right. But I think it's important to cover the first 2 bases of what is your intro offer, right? Because that's definitely going to clean up your overall lead quality. And then your automations in place, right? Because those are going to considerably help with overall booking rates. So wanted to settle those 2 in particular before we dive into kind of the best practices of Meta and what we're seeing working, on the actual advertising side. So with that being said, what is working on Meta right now? And it's 3 primary pieces, right? It's your offer, like we talked about. It's your hook. So that is the initial piece or the initial copy or the initial image, whatever it may be, that stops people from scrolling directly in their feed. And then it's really the creative, right? How engaging can you be with your actual creative? Those are the three most fundamental pieces that we're seeing really move the needle from both a CPL and a conversion rate standpoint, to get people to actually sign. Because as you guys can attest, right, probably much better than I can, but there's a lot of competition out there, and people are consistently pumping more and more into advertising and trying to be the next thing, and the virality of TikTok and Instagram, etc. So you really need to nail these three pieces before you're able to have a sustainable growth system on paid, right? When it comes to recommended spend, I know this isn't going to be a very popular opinion, but from what we've seen with the 60 plus studio partners that we're actively working with, you really don't start to see a return on investment until you're really in that $750 to $1,000 per month ad spend per location. So the reason that is that you just don't aggregate enough data. You don't give enough data to Meta to really optimize the campaigns and target the people that you want to target on a budget that's lower than that. Again, primarily due to overall competition, rising costs in media, rising costs in CPLs, etc. So unfortunately, Meta is one of those things that's just a pay-to-play platform, and it rewards brands, companies, and studios for consistently advertising within the platform. So I'd say those are the three, if not four, takeaways that are working primarily on Meta right now.
Can I ask two quick questions there, Zach?
Hit me.
First one, does that $750 to $1,000, does that depend on your, like, physically where you are? Like if you're in a city versus a suburb versus rural?
Totally. Yeah. So population density definitely does have a factor into that. And I would say another secondary component is if you do have 2 or 3 locations that are all within a, let's call it 5-ish or so mile radius, then the 750 per location can really be reduced to around 500 or so, because there is going to be similar demographics, similar potential customers that you're marketing to. So you can get away with a slightly lower spend.
Okay, super helpful. And then I guess the other one isn't necessarily a question, but maybe just a clarification. And I want everybody to hear this, how much Meta rewards consistency.
Yep.
So I think one of the most common things we hear is that people tend to spend on advertising certain times of the year, or when things feel like they're slowing down at their business. So it's, let's kind of like fire drill, throw money at the problem, see what happens for a couple months. And then when things pick up, they breathe again and they stop spending money. But Meta does not like that. And it doesn't reward that type of behavior, if I'm hearing you correctly.
100%. 100%. I think it's great in theory, in the sense of, okay, hey, let's save $750 or $1,000 this month, right? But then again, the ability to get things ramped back up after that time is, you lose out quite a bit in terms of just overall efficacy of your ads. Your CPLs are going to be higher, CPMs are going to be higher, customer acquisition cost is going to be higher. So it's highly, highly recommended to have campaigns running at any point in time on a monthly basis.
Actually, Alex just asked a follow up to that. If you're not interested in, or just frankly able to spend $500 a month on Meta, is it better to just skip paid ads in general?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really
good
helpful.
question.
Mm-hmm. And Susan asked, what do you mean by reward? Meta rewards, do they not show it? Is it less optimal to folks? I don't know if you can answer that completely, but
it's I don't know if I have a scientifically backed answer with that. We just see it that if we run campaigns and start campaigns, getting things back up and running as re-enter the learning phase, campaigns re-enter the learning phase over the course of 3 to 5 days. So you're really losing out on efficacy. Let's call it 5 to 7 days or so of that month, where if you were consistently advertising, right, it would have been consistently learning on what happened yesterday, the day before that, the week before that, the month before that. So it's just constantly getting better and better, right? Meta does a great job of somewhat autonomous marketing once you give it the pieces. And the pieces are your offer, your hook, your creative, and the copy as well, right? And so then you just need to know what to look out for, when to pause certain ads, when to introduce new ones, etc. But in terms of the targeting and the delivery, Meta does a good job of iterating and learning from itself.
Somebody, like in my basic non-technical marketing terms, somebody explained this to me one time as meta is excellent with patterns. And if you leave something going for a while, the pattern recognition becomes so excellent and spot on that it's hard for them to miss, for meta to miss. But when you disrupt the pattern over and over and over, it becomes more challenging for it to be effective.
Spot on. Who said that?
I don't remember.
Okay. Let's say I'm going to take it. I'm not going to claim that I said it. I'm just going to say a friend of mine.
There you go. Oh, I do know who said it. A woman named Krista Clive-Smith.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, shout out to Krista then. That's spot on. All right, real quick, guys. So again, going back to the 3 fundamental pieces, hooks are, again, one of the most vital things. And a hook is essentially just what stops the scroll. People are flipping through Instagram, they're flipping through Facebook. They're not necessarily there to look for your business or your studio. So when they see an ad, it's got to be motivating. It's got to be captivating, right? And we really break it down into 5 simple frameworks, or 5 different types of hooks that we typically implement, particularly for yoga studios. So we've got 5 here that are just examples. Again, this is another takeaway that you guys can go and look and weave into your campaigns, whether it's the copy or the creative. But the first one is the curiosity hook. So this is something that kind of poses a question to where people see it, they stop and like, interesting, right? So quick one for this is I did yoga every day for 30 days. Here's what nobody tells you about what happens to your body, right? ... People see that. They're wondering, well, what does happen to my body, right? The next one is the pain point hooks. You're targeting something that really that specific customer might be suffering from. And so this one is potentially back pain. Your back pain isn't from your mattress. It's from the 8 hours you spend sitting, and 20 minutes can fix it, right? And then obviously your subsequent copy after that then can potentially tie into how yoga is great for back pain, right? But you're targeting a very specific person who is an ideal customer for your yoga studio, right? The contrarian hook, this is something that really just flips it on its head, right? Flips traditional logic on its head. Yoga isn't about flexibility, right? And that's just like, wait, what? It's not? Most people think that, right? And so tagging that into either your creative or your copy is going to stop people to be like, well, what the hell is it about then, right? And so that's what get people to kind of stop, take a look, and then obviously engage further from there. Next one is social proof. Simple enough. This is really just targeting specific testimonials or specific statistics as it relates to your business or whatever it may be. And then lastly is the direct challenge hook. So again, targeting people who can or cannot do these specific things and how yoga or your studio can be the solve for those things, right? If you can't touch your toes, sit on the floor comfortably, or take a deep breath without tension, this is for you, right? Some of you here might have signed up, particularly because of the some of the meta ads that we were running, right? Or that Laura had created, and her first hook was exactly just that. If you're a yoga studio owner doing anywhere between $20,000 to $30,000 per month, then this is for you, right? It's a very, very specific call out that targets those folks who are most interested to do that, and that's what stops the scroll. All right. Next up, again, this is a very technical slide, so I don't expect everybody to get this, but I just want to showcase the amount of depth that it takes in order to run a consistent ad campaign, right? A consistently high converting ad campaign. And these are this is the blueprint for what ONBRND does for all of our meta advertising. So we break it down into 4 statistical categories. You have your pause rules. So when is it that you want to pause an ad fatigue rule, when do you need to update creative, your funnel diagnosis. So how is it looking from a conversion rate standpoint, not only CPL, but also conversion and down the line. And then your lead quality check, right? So after you've generated 50 leads, how many of them booked, how many of them have converted to members, et cetera. That type of data should then go inform what you're doing upstream. So just to dig into this quickly, again, you guys can screenshot it. You'll obviously have this deck sent to you guys via email after the fact, so you guys can reference this. But again, the pause rule for us is if any ad is spending over 1.5 times your target CPL, then you got to create a new ad and pause that one, right? Pause an ad if there's been 3+ leads over the course of 30 days, but the CPL is greater than 1.5%, 1.5 your target CPL, but it's accounted for less than 33% of your ad set leads. Pause those, right? So again, there's a ton of variable data that we can dig into here, but our paid specialist teams have really put this together and put a framework in. And this is the logic that we are considering and optimizing on a consistent basis. And this is what allows us to have healthy CPLs and strong conversion rates, primarily because of these metrics and benchmarks, if you will, that dictate everything that we do on the advertising side. So
what is a healthy CPL? Or yeah, talk to us about if somebody is doing this on their own, what do you shoot for generally?
100%. I would say that goes back to your offer, right? So depending on where the price point is of your offer, you typically want your CPLs to be 30 to 50% of that or so, right? So if you have a $30 offer, you want to be anywhere between the $10 to $50 mark, right? Assuming that leads are converting anywhere between 5 to 10%. That's where the math really makes sense from a customer acquisition cost. If you have a $50 offer, right, you want your leads to be in the $15 to $20 range, right? So I think that's probably a general ballpark that we look to aim at. Obviously, for us, we like to go a little bit lower and go as low as we possibly can, but not at the detriment of sacrificing lead quality.
Mm-hmm. And I know some of you out there have free offers, so that may be tricky for you in that case, just as low as you can get.
100%. I would say again, depending on your market demographic and where you guys are at, in terms of total population density and what your customer persona, could potentially look like, usually you want to be in the $5 to $7 range tops for a first class free. A first week free should be even lower than that.
Okay.
Yeah. Good call out. I will say though, if you guys, I'm not totally against first class free or free offers when they make sense, but it should be to a much more segmented audience. We haven't found a ton of success running free classes on Meta. You get a ton of leads, you get them cheap, decent booking rate, right? Around 5 to 10% or so, but it's what happens after the fact is where you're kind of left hanging, holding the bag at that point. But I think first class free definitely has a place, particularly on the automation side and the win back side, to get people re-engaged. But for paid media, could not recommend it less.
Good.
All right. And then last but not least, guys, just a quick tidbit for you guys, particularly on the lead quality, as I know 75% of folks on this call are really suffering from that. There's really 3 or 4 different levers that we look to pull when it comes to the overall lead quality side of things, right? And they can all be done particularly with the Meta Instant Forms tool. So if you guys are driving people to a landing page and people are signing up, there's only so much you can do there. But if you're leveraging the instant forms in particular, there's a couple of different things that you can do. The first thing is adding 1 to 2 different qualifying questions. Okay, so making it a little bit more of a hassle, if you will, a little bit more of a chore to fill out that instant form. Okay, so ones that are performing well for us are, what are your current health and fitness goals, right? For yoga in particular, your answers would be anywhere between 3 to 4, drop downs or bullet points, if you will. I want to improve flexibility. I want to boost overall energy. I want to find myself a little bit more grounded, or I want to build a community or be part of a community, right? Those are the 4 that we include. And then the next one is we like to qualify just based on overall zip code. This is especially important for urban markets. And then the last one is, when you're looking to get started, all right? So can you introduce folks that ideally are saying, I want to start as soon as possible, I want to start in the next couple of days, etc. That tends to clean up lead quality a bit. And then if that doesn't work, then you go into conditional logic. And so you can build in conditional logic to any of those 3 questions that I just said. And if any of those answers isn't right, then they are not able to submit a lead form, right? They'll just get bounced from it saying, hey, this probably isn't the best fit. You can check out our website to learn a little bit more and come back when you're ready. That's another piece that we look to implement pretty much standard across the board. And then last but not least, something that we just started testing because Meta rolled it out about 6-7 months ago or so, when it comes to instant forms, is SMS verification. So again, you go through all of those questions and then you enter your personal information before they're able to submit that lead form. The Meta will actually send them a 2FA or a 6-digit code that they have to wait for, and then punch in to Facebook directly in order to submit their information. So again, with that, we've seen CPLs increase around 10 to 12%, but the conversion rates on it have skyrocketed as a result. So again, if you're in a place where your cost per lead can increase a bit, that's certainly a lever I would recommend implementing.
Yeah, I would say too, it seems that more and more people are struggling with boatloads of spam. And so this is going to dramatically help that.
Totally. And again, like if they're confirming their phone number, it's not going to be bogus information when it gets into your Walla account or your MindBody account, Mariana Tech. So that way, following up makes it that much easier for you as well, that much more legitimate.
Awesome. All right, we have a couple quick questions here. So Brendan was asking if essentially if you do offers. So in his case, he has a free class and a 2-week trial offer.
Okay.
You're saying advertise the 2-week trial offer, don't advertise the free. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. What you can do there, and what we're actively doing for a handful of different clients, it's a classic upsell downsell, right? Where we're pushing the higher ticket priced item, and then we nurture them over the course of 7 days, similar to the new lead flow that I showed you guys in the automations. And if for whatever reason they don't convert in the first 7 to 10 days, then you put them into a follow-up bucket and ask them to take advantage of that free class, right? So I think that's where it makes sense, is if you can just get somebody in the door at that point, then there's an opportunity to leverage that.
Perfect. Yeah. So it may not even make sense to have that free class on your website as an offer. It's your pocket offer for down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then somebody wondering about just opt-in rates on text. Do you see generally, like, do you have any guidance or, maybe 20% opt out, 50% opt out, or is it business to business?
I would say, like, statistically speaking, about a third of folks who opt in for email are going to opt into SMS. So that's pretty standard from what we've seen. So if you have a list of 5,000 people, you can expect to have anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 people opted in on SMS.
Yeah.
In terms of the opt out side of things, that depends on how much you're marketing people, right? So it can vary pretty drastically depending on what you're offering, how it is that you're positioning it, et cetera.
Yeah. And something I just like to remind everyone here is that not every communication point with your clients has to be selling something. And I think that's
100%.
part of the reason we see opt-out rates,
Yep.
moving in the direction they are, is a lot of businesses just use communication like that to push a deal. And that's just, it's not a great relationship. That's not what I want open my phone to every day. So if you are going to be using text message, really remember that people want to learn from you. They want to have a relationship with your business and not just be sold to.
100%. No, spot on, Laura. Again, that goes back to just the overall personalization and, kind of the community aspect that's really, really working from an automation standpoint.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So real quick, guys, when it comes back to hooks, your ad lives or dies in the first 3 seconds, right? So yeah, the 3-second attention span for these users or for these potential customers to take advantage of it. Take a look at the hooks, take a look at the creative. Is it eye captivating, right? And then really that's the number one reason why people aren't clicking on your ads. All right. A couple examples of our top performers. They're relatively simple, but they have 3 different pain points or 3 different hooks, if you will, right? The first one is very value driven with the actual offer, just first and foremost, targeting beginners for Tuladara. We're getting leads on a $60 offer between 10 and 12 bucks here. And they're converting close to 12%. Next one is Lumi Yoga, actually. Funny enough, they're in pre-sale. So this is like an exclusive offer, if you will, as part of the pre-sale process. 7 days for $29. What if I said 20 minutes of yoga can help eliminate your back pain? Again, talking about a potential pain point hook. And then next up is Soul Seek Yoga. Again, focusing on that community in particular, right? Yoga shouldn't feel lonely. And then obviously you have the details of your offer directly in the description copy or the potential headline of it as well. So 3 different pain points, 3 different hooks, 3 different creative assets, all static overlays that are relatively simple to create, but make a meaningful difference when it comes to actual engagement rate and conversion rate. All right. So just to kind of summarize everything, guys, the 6 reasons that your ads aren't potentially converting, right, or you aren't getting people through the door is the hook is absent or noticeable. Creative isn't necessarily eye-catching. The offer doesn't exactly resonate with the folks, whether it's too high priced or it's too low priced. The copy is generic. There's no automated follow-up systems in place, and then there's no system for creative iteration, right? And what I mean by creative iteration is that it's just bringing different variations and different ads into your meta campaigns on a weekly basis. So just to give you guys a little insight in terms of how we manage our studio partners campaigns is that we're optimizing these anywhere between 3 to 5 times per week, depending on overall efficacy, right? And so that would be across iterating on copy and potential hooks, introducing new creatives, so pausing underperforming ones, segmenting the ones that are working, creating 3 or 4 different variations of those with different callouts, different hooks, different images, or different videos. And then also segmentation, right, from an audience targeting standpoint. So Again, if you build the system beforehand, you give yourself, let's call it 10 to 15 different assets. They don't have to be completely different. Just have one minor change, whether it's the copy overlay, the image, etc. You're going to give yourself a runway of about 4 to 6 weeks to run an effective campaign. All right. So that was pretty much it on the meta side in terms of how it is that you can get leads into your system, but then really kind of optimize upstream, right, to clean up that lead quality to where you can get to that 8, 9, 10% booking rate, as opposed to just the 1 to 3% that I would imagine the majority of you guys are sitting in right now. All right. And now the final piece is, I promise I've been talking at you guys for about 30 minutes now. This is the final section. And it's usually the opportunity that typically goes most underutilized. And it's one of the reasons why we at ONBRND have developed pretty much like a holistic marketing agency to where we tap into your existing contact list, because that is where the most opportunity lies, right? Is leveraging the contacts that you guys have spent so much money and so much time and so much effort to acquire that, how do we leverage them? How do we get them back in the studio on a consistent basis, right? So first and foremost is, again, it's the biggest gold mine that you guys have in your existing business. We will run anywhere between 1 to 2 different win-back campaigns every 4 to 6 weeks or so for our studio partners on targeting hyper segmented individuals with very specific offers, right? So just to give you guys a quick example of how valuable your existing list can be, one of our studio partners, Tuladara Yoga, we ran a win-back opportunity for them last month that was spanned over 10 days. It had 5 text messages, and it was hyper personalized. So we pulled in the first name. It was founder-led in terms of the actual studio itself, touched on their pain points, and presented an offer in a very non-threatening way, right? So we had that nurture follow-up. We essentially treated them as if they were new leads. And as a result of that, we had 39 reactivations last month. Again, just so the existing customers that were already in there. And Tuladara usually converts folks between 30 and 40%. So I believe those folks came in anywhere between 12 to 13 members across their 3 studio locations, just based on building that win-back campaign.
Gosh, that's awesome. And guys, if you're thinking, especially if you're using Walla, it is quite easy to look at that list.
100%, 100%.
You can build an audience by the time this webinar is over in a minute of, I want to see everybody who's got an account created in Walla who hasn't had a visit in X number of days. And you can also say, or used to be a member, or, and bought our intro offer at some point. So you can find that list. And I'm telling you, when I run this with clients, there are typically thousands of people on that list. So there are so many opportunities.
Well, no, spot on, Laura. And again, that tees it up perfectly. So guys, this Tuladara happens to be on Walla. So again, the segmentation is just, it's incredibly seamless. You build the audiences up. Again, for us, we've been obviously doing it for a long time. But again, this is a blueprint for our Walla studios here that you can literally just take and build directly within the journeys or the audience section. But the way that we built this one for Tuladara was, again, pretty much handling or targeting anybody who's come into the studio that has not come back in the last 6 months, all right, and does not have a member, does not have a membership, does not have anything purchased. So the setup for that was class check-in activity was 1 overall time. So that pulled in people who had at least taken 1 class. Class check-in was 0 over the course of the last 180 days, meaning they haven't visited within the last 6 months. To further segment, just to make sure no members get them, whether they're paused or whatever it may be, has member status equals no. And then the plans purchased equals 0 last 180 days. That will essentially weed out anybody who does convert as part of the first message, right? So if we send it out to, this list was around 2,200 people. If we send the first message and someone converts or purchases that plan on the first message, they would then automatically be removed from the subsequent 4 messages after that, right? So we're not spamming them at the end of the day. But again, this is the type of segmentation that's possible, and even more granular than this, honestly, within Walla, that's very, very simple and very user-friendly to put together, right, to where you can really kind of export and take advantage of it.
So for this offer, did you make it lower than the new student intro offer, or was it the same?
Nope, it was the same. Yeah, it was 30 days for $59, just created a separate pricing option so that folks who have visited before can take advantage of it. And something cool about Walla is, again, you can have a direct purchase link that's not showing on your actual website or your pricing page, right? So that way, not anybody can just take advantage of it. It's only sent to the folks who fell into this win back campaign. All right. So the full system in closing, guys. Again, this is just the final few slides for you guys. Really, like the way you look at it is it's a full system is so much greater than your single tactic, right? You have to make sure that these 6 pieces are really these five pieces are working together synonymously in order to move your studio forward. You got to have the right offer. You got to have the automation set into place, right, to nurture anybody that comes into your studio. Paid traffic, got to get down, particularly on the meta side. The segmentation has to be right, and just really, really leverage that existing contact list that you guys have on the reactivation front, right? Ideally, it's on a monthly basis just to squeeze how much you can get out of the thousands of people that are already familiar with your brand. All right. And so with that is it. And I wanted to thank you guys all for listening to me babble for the last, let's call it 45 minutes or so. And as a result, guys, we are going to be offering a free win back campaign. So exactly what I just talked about, in the sense of what we did for Tuladar Yoga. Anybody who's on this webinar, on this call, feel free just to scan that QR code. It goes directly to my calendar. Would love the opportunity to show you guys what's capable directly with the existing contact list that you guys have. We would handle everything, inclusive of offer strategy, audience segmentation, copywriting, and execution. Everything in between. So feel free to scan that. And then again, we'll look forward to seeing you guys soon. But hopefully there was a few tidbits and snippets away from here that you guys are able to implement in your business right away.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions, but guys, this is literally free money. I mean, sending something to your existing audience when it's segmented properly is going to generate at least a couple sales. So please take advantage of this. So this is a question a little bit outside of just marketing, but Angela was asking about unlimited memberships in general.
Okay.
Do you find that those perform? And also her other question is, do you limit those to 1 per day max? Like I guess just thinking about the financial ramifications of offering unlimited.
Totally. No, great question. I would say every studio partner that we work with has a monthly unlimited plan. And I would say it's probably 50-50 in the sense of folks who limit it to 1 class per day versus it's a truly unlimited. I would say in the yoga space in particular, it's typically unlimited with the average. Yeah. What'd you say?
I like actually unlimited.
I agree, right? I agree. And particularly in yoga, when you guys have a little bit higher of a capacity in each individual studio, you can get away with that. We're seeing average utilization, I would say anywhere between 16 to 18 classes, I would say, on the unlimited side. Or where you typically want to introduce a cap or a per day limit is in the Pilates space, right? Because you only have typically 10 to 12 spots. So they're much more valuable at that point.
Yeah. And something I like to remind studios is that the people that are coming to your business, if they're taking 2 classes a day, I guarantee they're telling somebody,
correct,
that changed my life. Like going to this yoga studio is the reason I feel so good. Like they become your marketing just being out in the world. So
the juice is worth the squeeze at that point. Typically what we see, and there's always going to be 5 to 10 folks, right, that are your absolute tryhards, but they're also the ones that really kind of make or break the community, right? Those are the anchor points for sure.
Yeah. I never felt like it was going to cripple my business to let people take a couple of classes a day. Okay. So just in general, thinking about businesses with multiple offers, I know we talked about free versus not free, but we have lots of clients that have multiple offers, like a lower tier and a higher tier.
Yep.
Do you recommend simplifying and staying with one?
Honestly, if you asked me 6 months ago, I probably would have said yes. But legitimately, over the last 6 months, we have been introducing a high ticket and kind of a medium ticket, if you will. And it's converted pretty damn well for us. We'll sell less of the higher ticket, obviously, but kind of from just like a psychological standpoint, if you're advertising something for $99, all of a sudden the $49 or the $59 offer looks a hell of a lot better as well, right? When in reality, though, that's still a pretty decent size intro offer chunk in the boutique space, particularly for yoga, that we've seen be pretty effective. So I think having 1 high ticket, 1 mid ticket or so is very advantageous.
Yeah. Something else I will add to that is whenever I see those be really successful, oftentimes the high ticket has some sort of a cool perk with it, like
Yeah,
mat and towel service
for sure.
or something that just makes it feel a little bit more VIP, right? And people want convenience. People want to feel like they can just waltz in and have an easy experience. So I think that helps with that higher ticket offer for sure.
100%.
Alicia is wondering, any thoughts on ClassPass and conversions there? I know you had a slide on it on converting from ClassPass. Um, any words of wisdom? I know it's tricky.
It's always tricky. What we've seen with ClassPass is it's always going to be price related, right? Again, back to Walla, the ability to segment ClassPass folks in particular is very advantageous. An offer that's worked for us, at least from a membership standpoint, is either a $99 first month package, or comp the first month and it's full price for the remaining 2 to 3 months. Again, just to see if you can get those people to convert and come on a consistent basis. But those are, yeah, 9 times out of 10, CP is going to stay CP. So that's really the only offer that we've had success converting folks with.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, guys, last chance for questions here before we let Zach get back to building some win back campaigns. um, okay. Well, thank you, Zach, so much for sharing your insight, your wisdom. It is such a pleasure. And guys, I hope this was helpful in just giving some direction. But take advantage of his offer. Please get to know the guys at ONBRND, guys and gals at ONBRND, and keep your eyes out. We're going to have a few more of these webinars coming up. We know how much everyone is asking for support when it comes to not just marketing, but actually lead management and retention. So keep your eyes peeled, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.